After 2 hours of sweating out his helplessness, he had discovered a lively resentment of the vicious callousness with which he had been jettisoned. He was only about 25 yards away now, seemingly circling the ship. Peering closer, he saw that actually he was sweeping in toward it. "Now, be ready with the air tank valve, just in case," he warned himself. The great fins loomed to his right. The hull blotted most of the sky from his view. It looked as if he would curve down to a spot beside the same airlock from which he had been expelled. It seemed to be still open. Then he saw the shape of a helmet rise around the curve of the ship. Someone was out on the hull. Tremont switched on his radio and listened. The space-suited figure climbed completely into view. There appeared to be a line running from the belt into the airlock, and the figure carried a long pole of some sort. "Oh, there you are, Tremont," came Braa's voice over the receiver. "I've been waiting for you." The chuckle that followed made Tremont curse, which in turn provoked a hearty laugh from the other. "You didn't think I'd forgot you," said Braa. "We figured out what happened as soon as we heard you were putting out those distress calls. After that, it was just a matter of timing. Have you had an amusing trip?" "Have you found out you can't make anything of those papers yet?" countered Tremont. "Oh, the coding? It might take a little time, but we have plenty. Now, Tremont, that kind of abusive language will get you nowhere." Tremont had drifted to a point above the other's head, almost within reach. He was kicking out in little motions that betrayed his eagerness to come to grips with Braa or something solid. "Why, Tremont, I do believe that you thought I came out to bargain with you," chuckled the blond man. "Not at all. I told you that you'd be no trouble. I just came out to finish the job Peters bungled." Tremont saw the pole jabbing upward at his stomach. Instinctively he grabbed at the end. Braa was not disturbed. "Take it with you, then," he laughed, letting go his end with a powerful push. "Let me know if you're alive the next time you come around, so I can come out again." Tremont began to swear at him, then got a grip on himself long enough to snap his radio off. He had begun pulling himself down the pole when Braa had shoved. That sapped some of the force, but it was still enough to send him spinning out into the void once more. The ship receded slowly. He saw Braa return to the airlock and enter. A moment later that light was cut off, and Tremont began to back off into space as he had the first time. "They know all about it," he realized. "They could leave me any time just by burning a little fuel. Peters wouldn't care about wasting it. I paid for it. Maybe he's just too lazy to calculate the course correction." If so, he decided, the pilot was right. Tremont might drift back, but 2 more hours from now, when he would be at his closest, it would be too late. He would be too near the end of his air to use it to make sure of the last few feet. He looked at the pole in his grip. It was an 8-foot section of aluminum from the cargo racks. "Maybe," he muttered. Whirling the pole around by the end, he managed after considerable trial and error to slow his wild spin enough to keep the ship in view. The only question then was whether he dared to take the chance, and he really had but one choice. The full orbit would be too long a period. He estimated as well as he could the direction of his progress, allowed a few degrees which he fondly hoped would curve him in to a closer approach at the meeting point, and hurled the pole into space with all his strength. After that there was nothing to do but wait, and hope that he had cut his speed enough to bring him to the ship ahead of schedule by a shorter orbit. Tremont finally gave up looking at his watch when he found himself peeping every 3 minutes, on the average. The immensity of space was by now instilling him a psychological chill, and he drew both arms in from their sleeves to hug an illusion of warmth to him. The air pressure in the sleeves gradually overpowered the springs of the joints and extended them to make a cross. As far as he could tell from the gauges lined in a miniature row along the neckpiece of the suit, his heating system was functioning as designed. The batteries had an excellent chance of lasting longer than he would. He began to dwell upon thoughts of squeezing Peters in the steel grip of his gauntlets until the pilot's fat face turned purple and his eyes popped. Another promising activity would be to bang Brah's head against a bulkhead with one hand and Dorothy's with the other. "Wonder if they found the gun in my locker," he mused. Finally, only a lifetime or two after he hoped to see it, he sighted the ship again. His watch claimed the trip had lasted less than 90 minutes. He encountered unexpected trouble approaching the hull. Realizing that he was lucky to come close at all by such a guess, he tried to steer himself with brief jets from his air tank, and wound up on the verge of bashing directly into a fin. He avoided that, but had to use more air to spin back for a more gentle contact. The metal felt like solid earth to him as he seized the edge of a fin and planted the magnets of his boots firmly on the hull. It was perhaps 20 minutes later, when Tremont was beginning to worry again about his air supply, that the hatch of the airlock began to open. Crystals of frost puffed out as the water vapor left the air. Brah's helmet appeared, then the whole spacesuited figure floated up before the spot where Tremont was watching. The hijacker dropped the magnet of his lifeline against the hull and started to turn around. Tremont grabbed the edge of the hatch with one hand, yanked the magnet loose with the other, and kicked Brah in the right area. The space-suited figure shot off, tumbling end over end into the void. A startled squawk sounded over Tremont's receiver. "See how you like it," he snarled. He ignored the begging of the suddenly frightened voice and dived into the airlock. In seconds he had the outer hatch shut and was nervously watching the air pressure building up on the gauge. "If they notice at all, they'll think it's Brah coming back," he exulted. He made it into the central shaft without meeting anyone. Pulling himself forward in the bulky suit was an awkward task, but well worth it for the expression on Peter's face when Tremont burst through the control room hatch. After dealing with the pilot in about 2 minutes, most of it spent in catching him, Tremont went back along the shaft and found Dorothy in her bunk. Before she could release the netting, he folded the bunk upon her and secured it to the hook. Only then did he allow himself the time to remove his helmet and make free of the ship's air. "What are you going to do?" demanded the girl, rather shrilly. Tremont realized that she must have seen the unconscious Peters floating outside in the shaft. "You won't like it," he promised.
"Tremont, I didn't know they'd do anything to you. Can't you and I make some kind of deal?"
Tremont stared at her levelly. "But I'd have to really sleep sometime," he pointed out gently. "How can I trust you?" He was hardly a million miles out from the satellite system of Centauri 6 when the Space Patrol ship he had called managed to put a pilot aboard to land the Annabelle for him on the largest moon. Tremont returned wearily from helping the man in the airlock, which he did with a practiced efficiency that surprised the pilot, to resume his talk with the patrol ship captain waiting on the screen. "We could have done it sooner, you know," said the latter curiously. "Well, now that I see him beside you, perhaps you'll explain your request to delay, and also what those pips trailing you are." "It's all the same story," said Tremont, and explained his difficulties. The patrol captain frowned and expressed a wish to lay hands on the hijackers. "Well, they're due back in." Tremont consulted his watch. "About 2 hours. I wanted them near the ends of their orbits as you approached." "You mean there are 3 bodies out there?" "Live ones, in spacesuits," said Tremont. "Experience is a great teacher. As soon as I sighted Brah coming back, I set up a regular system." He explained how he had removed all tools from the 3 spacesuits, added extra tanks, and stuffed the trio into them, either unconscious or at gunpoint. Then, having fastened the ankles together and wired the wrists to the thighs so they couldn't move at all, I launched them one at a time with enough pressure in the airlock to give 4-hour orbits. That gave me sleeping time." "And what about them?" asked the captain. "Oh, at the end of that period, they'd come drifting in at 1-hour intervals. Counting all the necessary operations, each of them got 30 minutes actually out of the suit to eat and so on.